So this guy here has been deemed Flatbolt. We need to do some upgrades to it. Because while it climbs really well, you can always do better. So we're going to add some stuff. We're going to add this NSDRC RS100 and these some Treal Overdrives to the front. So let's go ahead and get at it. Well, we can show you right now the kind of it's got good slow crawl. Adding the overdrive is going to make the front a little faster, but not too big of a deal. We do have behind the axle steering on this guy. We're using the Mantis ultra high clearance links from McHugh. We'll post a link over here to the McHugh video that we did. Also, we're going to post a link to all the Treal stuff and the Servo in the description below. So just in case you've never seen this body and build before, it's got the FureTech Komodo. It's running a Lizard, not the Lizard Pro actually, just a regular Lizard with Bluetooth. We run these square batteries with Velcro on the side. Allows us to get our body super low. We've got magnet mounts with our lights wired to the magnet mounts. You can see that here. Here. It's running just a regular old Emax, which is why we need to upgrade, because when we get into tough situations, it doesn't fly. We've got Endura links, steering linkage. These are some AliExpress axles, which have been fantastic. We've got some patty weights. Treal plus 5s, you can see them down in there. And then the Treal wheels. Then these are Patagonias. We also have some 3D printed skid plates or whatever, so you can mount stuff. We run a Fly Sky receiver on this guy. And then these are Endura double barrel shocks, flipped upside down for clearance reasons. And I think that's everything. Just chopped up. It's actually running stock links on the top. We've shaved down the belly plate and the pumpkins just to give a little bit more clearance. Remember, in 1/24 scale, every millimeter you shave off is like 24 millimeters in real life. Like if it were a real scaled rig, 1:1, technically a 1/24 is 24 times. So if you're looking to shave off 3 millimeters, you're getting like a 12 millimeter clearance addition if it were to scale. So just something to keep in mind. On little rigs, little RC cars, everything, the smaller it is, the more the little adjustments and little clearances will affect the rig and the performance. Like we see it in Minis a lot. Like just a little tiny movement of any adjustment or slop totally changes the way everything performs. And even weight distribution, just having a little gram here or there on some of those cars makes a big difference. So, all right, let's go ahead and get into this. We're going to go ahead and install the Treals and then the Servo. Now, we would probably be putting the CVDs on here if they had +4s. Actually, you know what? We're going to do the Mofo +4s on here. I forgot we even had those. So there's the Mofos with the +4s. We're going to throw them on here. That's what we'll do. That's what we'll do. Make sure you don't lose your little brass bushings. Those are important. We're also going to swap this screw. We've got the wrong length screw. And we've got a screw kit now that has a bunch of different sizes, so we can choose the right size. That way we're not hitting our dog bone, or, well, our CVD now. So that guy's going to be gone. All right, so here's our gears and our worm gear. We're gonna have to pop off our drive shaft here. All the things. So we haven't really taken this apart since we initially built it with these axles. Seems like everything's fine in there. This is where we did have to clear out a little bit of space for the bearings when we installed these axles, because there seemed like there was just a tiny bit of binding, just the littlest bit, and I think it just had to do with the coating was causing the bearing to not sit completely flush, and then it, like, once we got rid of that and kind of smoothed it out and gave it a little bit more clearance, it became like butter. It was much better like butter. All right, so let's go ahead and open up the Treals. So it does come with O-rings, so you do not need to use your original O-ring. You can, but you don't need to. So there's the two rings and the worm gear. It's like the O-ring is a little bit bigger here than what's given to us, so we'll use the new O-rings just because that's what they provided. But these worm gears are just slightly different, I believe. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, no, they're the same. So I think the only actual difference, maybe the pitch is slightly different. I can't tell. They look very, very similar. But the gear here is very different. This is the 13. You can see it says 213, which means we're going to have a little bit more speed in the front. So something I want to point out here on the Treal worm gear side is they are not, even if the gearing is the same, they are not the same, because you can see there's this tiny groove here, and it's on both sides. There's a tiny groove right up in there where these O-rings just fit down in there. On this guy, there is no tiny groove. It's just flush. The shaft goes all the way up to the gearing. Same here, shaft goes all the way up to the gearing with no groove at all. So that's nice, because what it does is it holds the O-rings in place. It also makes it so you can minimize the amount of O-ring you need. That's why these are smaller, to accomplish the same effect of keeping the bearing off and keeping the slop out. So, yeah, that's awesome little touch there. It's very hard to see. It's so minor, but it is in there, and you can push the O-rings down into the groove, and they tuck in and they hold real nice. So we actually have a little bit of ball diff grease here for the Mini Z. We're just going to go ahead and use a little bit of this in here just to make sure it's not all dry. And should help with any kind of wear that we end up getting. Just a little bit. I'm not a fan of running stuff completely dry. There's already a little bit of lube in the housing. Not that that really matters, because you're trying to keep the lube where it belongs, which is on the gears, not in the housing. But it inevitably will end up there. Where did our bearing go? Stuck to our magnet. The downside of magnet mounts, everything sticks to them. So we're going to go ahead and swap over the servo. I wonder if we can use the same servo horn. We love our white servo horns. Nope, we'll have to swap servo horns. That's fine. I couldn't remember what the Emacs used, so. And to be fair, we shouldn't probably install that until we have everything installed. But we do need to find it. I think these are the NSDRCs. Let's see. Maybe they came with black servo horns. Uh-oh. I can't remember which servo horn it came with because I opened them up and I was looking at stuff. No, I think that's it. No, that's not it. Uh-oh. Well, not uh-oh. I just think that we're going to end up with black servo horns. We have too many servo pieces. Dang it. Oh, here we go. I'm smart. I labeled it. Wait a second. Where's the horn? Oh, it fell out. It's over here. Got it. It's right next to the bag. It's a long one. I'm going to have to trim it. Yeah. Oh yeah, I forgot. This isn't going to work. We got to redo a whole bunch of stuff. We got the Mofo. We're going to have to Mofo it. So we're pulling this off. This video is becoming longer than I thought it was going to be. That's okay. We're going to Mofo best servo mount ever. We got it right over here. Bang. Let's go ahead and open this one up. So the Mofo best servo mount ever is called such because you can adjust where you mount it. The ears for the servo anyway. You can adjust how you mount the ears for the servo. So yeah, that'll be pretty nice. Let's get this old one off. Dang it, we put all this together and didn't even need to. Alright, we got our old one out. If you notice on our old one, to do 4-link, we had to trim it down a little bit so that the links would fit in there because there was actually like a nub kind of off of here that would stop it. So we did that, and then we've got our special little limiting strap servo horn piece of plastic we made, and hopefully it all just fits back in here. I think these Mofos are threaded. They're like, yeah, so you don't have to go through this center piece with a mount or any kind of plastic to keep it in. This unfortunately only had one side threaded, so to mount both 4 links, I had to screw into something plastic to hold the screw in. But these are actually threaded, so that's good. Let's go ahead and get this on here. Hopefully we fit nice on our AliExpress axle housing. We had no issue with the other one, so I'm hoping this is the same. So we got our Mofo plate installed for the servo mount, and we've got our links and our limiting strap with our little servo horn that we made mounted in there, and we are good to go in that regard. Now we just need to figure out the length for this here, which is going to be all the way forward, and it looks like we still kind of hit on our we are hitting. That's annoying. So our body mounts are kind of in the way. Grr. I need to be able to mount the servo here. So we may have to shim this forward just a little bit because I'm not trying to redo the body mounts and my limiting strap. So we'll probably mount this, the ears as far forward as possible, and then we'll put some sort of shim in there to move the servo forward a little bit, and hopefully it won't mess up our steering geometry. So let me look at it. So we went ahead and just installed it. We could have taken and mounted the ears with just one screw forward, and they wouldn't have been as stable, right? But once you put both sides in and screwed in the front, it might have been okay. But we could have moved this whole thing forward, and then it would have just hung over a little bit, and it would have been about here. But we're going to try it like this. I trimmed it up a little bit in here, and it seems fine. The servo wire is kind of my main concern. Once we try to get it through here, I don't want it binding up. So we'll see. It still hits a little bit, but the bigger issue, which I guess has always really been an issue, is that it already hits on the body. So it's hitting the body before it hits underneath here. You can't really see, but it is. And so that was always like that. So I don't think we're actually losing much, if anything. This is a little longer, so it might hit on the body a little more. We also took the body, and we had a plug here because I just wasn't 100% sure if I wanted to cut the plug. But we went in and chopped the plug. We had this big old piece sitting in here, and then the lights plugged in. That way, if we wanted to remove the lights and put them in something else, they'd still have their plug, but whatever. Who cares? So we just chopped it up, and the servo was hitting on this plug before, and now it's not hitting on the plug at all. So hopefully the servo will sit more flat now. It hit the plug and kind of go like this. You know, it'd go more on one side than the other because that plug was right underneath here. Now we can go completely flat. So it's much better. Probably better than what it was before, even though it can technically hit on these. But again, even if it does, it's not really binding. That's the shocks making that noise there. Actually, it's our links and shocks combined. So it's not the servo. That's not the issue, right? We're good there, I think. It does hit. You can feel it, but it's not significant. So now let's go ahead and get our front end back together. Go ahead and get our bearings on our Mofo CVDs. It's a little tight. That's okay. Well, that's interesting. Are they not going all the way in? We might need to pull our diff cover back off. Dang it. Sometimes you just want to loosen it. You need to be careful when you're doing your diff covers, especially if you have brass ones, that you don't over tighten them and they create binding in the worm gear. So just be aware of that. Keep that in mind. So we like to always try to test along the way. So we're going to just make sure doesn't seem like it's binding up or anything crazy here. It's hard to tell because these have a lot of torque, so I don't know if this is over tightened in there or not, so it's kind of difficult. You can always pull the drive shaft off and try to turn it by hand and feel it, but it is kind of hard to tell. You can do it like this as well. All right, that seems okay. All right, let's get the front back together all the way. We've just got to pull the seat cups out and mount everything onto the CVD axles. And now we just got to put all this back on. Oh, we're going to have to pull off the steering link here. I was hoping we could keep it together. Keep it together, keep it together. Nope. That's never good when it's getting tighter as you loosen it. Oh, we trimmed that. Forgot. So when this screw was the only screw we had at the time, and it was too long, so we trimmed it, and that wasn't a clean trim. And so as we back it out, it was not doing good things to our brass knuckles. That's okay. Hopefully it's all right. Just go ahead and get all this back together, and then we'll figure out if we got to do something. Now, we didn't ever have the proper length screw for this this bracket here. It's like an arm, and it goes through the knuckle and into the axle. And so we had a screw that was sticking out too far, and we're just it was kind of rigged, goofy. So we're gonna get the right screw here. At least a much closer length than what there was. Looks like we'll need a 7 millimeter if we can find one. Let's look. So that's not really a thing. We've got an 8, so we will try an 8. In worst case, we'll just put a washer or something, or leave it. The other one was sticking out. We can leave this one sticking out. The main issue is to make sure you don't have the screw going through the axle housing and hitting the CVD, or it was a dog bone, because hitting the dog bone means you're probably breaking the dog bone. So you just want to make sure you don't end up going through right there and hitting on stuff. Actually, this 8 looks like it's going to work perfect. Oh, it's poking out just a little bit. It's okay. We can back it off just a little bit. I don't know if you can see it very well, but right in there. If we were to tighten this guy down, you'll see it start to poke through right there. See it? And we'll back it back out. Just enough so it's not poking through. Which is fine. There's not really any play in there, so yeah, totally okay. Better than it was, for sure. It was like the screw was sticking up to like right here before, because we only had a super long screw, so not ideal. We got it all put back together. We just got to get our servo horn on there. Everything seems good. CVDs are in. Overdrive's in. Mofo World's Best Servo Mount's in. And the NSDRC is in. Well, in. We got to put the servo horn on. Just want to kind of check and make sure there's no crazy resistance in the drivetrain again. Just make sure. Oh, yeah. One way you can tell if you have binding. Oh, what's going on here? I guess it's just kind of the way it is. So these links don't have any sort of rubber grommets or O-rings. I could add some. I just prefer them to be a little more loose. And Doesn't appear to actually be hitting on anything, it's just kind of vibrating. Yeah, maybe we should O-ring this up or something. We'll probably do that a little bit later. Just get an O-ring in there just to kind of keep it from being so loose, because it's a little loose. It's a little loose. This side's not quite as loose. Oh, it is. They're both loose. That's just the way these links kind of are. Like I said, there's no O-rings or grommets or anything in there. They just kind of go. And they work fine. They've been fantastic. It must be barely tapping on something. Oh, I forgot. When this is sitting like this, it basically pushes too far back. It would never actually articulate that far. There we go. That's what it was. When it drops down, it starts kind of rubbing. All right, anyway, let's go ahead and get this servo set up. We're going to have to figure out how we want to do our wiring here to clean it up. We'll do that later, but for now, I'll just bring it along the battery here. I really wish there was a servo that just kind of came straight out the bottom center, the wire, somewhere in the center and toward the bottom. That'd be nice. Until that day, and I think I saw one. I don't remember who it was. If you know who it was that was making a servo that had the center wire come out the center and the bottom, post in the comments, because that would be nice to find. The NSDRC servo horn holes here are pretty large, so you can't just put a M1.4, one of the normal SCX screws through, and it'll stay. You have to put a nut on the end, or use a larger screw, which means then you have to modify your ball joint here. So I just used a large little screw, and it's on there very tight, so it's not going anywhere. You can also thread lock it, and then our servo horn screw. Now I'm curious, does anybody know why it seems like all the servo manufacturers have to use a Phillips head for their servo horn screw? Like, why are they not using hex screws? Is it because they need to keep it low profile, maybe? Hex screws usually can't be as low profile as like a Phillips head. Maybe that's why. Alright, we should be good. Ooh, there we go. Nice. So after you install a new servo, you always want to adjust your endpoints. And it's your dual rate if you have like a stock remote or endpoints. And that allows us to, well, those are all set to a lot. And the best way to do that is to kind of put the steering to its max without, it really binding on anything. Make sure you check that. Oh, we're a little loose here. What's going on? We may need a little mini nut for this as well, and a shorter screw. But you just basically want it so that you're not hitting on anything or binding up when you're turning. That's what your endpoints are for. Kind of your max turn. So you can see here when I turn, and I max turn it, my servo still kind of turns. See that? That means that you turn down my endpoint. You basically don't want your servo to keep turning once there is physical resistance. Okay? So we'll go ahead and turn that down a little more. A little more. That's better. And then we want equal steering, so we'll put our other endpoint very close to the same. All right. Seems good. And we could get more out of it. Like I said, with this behind the axle steering, you end up kind of hitting on stuff, especially with how low our shocks are. On a normal rig, where it's not a belly dragger, your shocks are more vertical. With them laying down like that, it just kind of hits on the, you can see it right there, right here. All right, we'll do 80. Get us a little bit better turn radius. But you can tweak that, mess with it on your own rig. It just kind of depends on your driving style, the limitations of how your rig's set up. This servo will crank these real far. It goes far, but again, our rig setup does not facilitate that because we're using some very low slung shocks, laid back, and behind the axle. Like I said, if we either raised our shocks or did in front of the axle, we'd have a lot better turning radius, but we're okay with it how it is for now. All right, let's go get some running footage. Oh no. got a light out. Guess we'll have to fix that. You have to put it in your backpack. Let's go. I don't think the Bronco's doing it. Look at that. Look at that. It looks cool. Oh, you made it. Oh, you made it.
That is amazing. The other way.
Daddy!
There you go. Nice and slow. Keep going.
What's up, buddy? No idea.
That's what kids do, huh? What? Huh? See you later. See you later. All that energy, man.
I'm standing right. I'm standing there.
Oh.
Bye.